Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Future. I'm Emily Cook, your host, and I'll be joined by our wonderful Evelyn Johnson from the 1920's and Doris Mayfield from the 1930's. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for coming. So,
thank you.
What does it feel like to be in the future?
It feels really cool.
That's definitely true. Everything is so new and so different.
Well, there's that amazing camera that I'm pretty sure it's just a modified version of like the black and white.
Yeah, like now we have awesome technology that allows us to record in color.
Well, unfortunately, in the 1920s, you couldn't add voices. So there was mostly just physical, and also there was like music.
Oh, like orchestra playing on the side.
In the 1930s, we kind of got more technology and we kind of incorporated voices into the movies. Yeah.
Just like small cartoons, we have like hour-long movies, 2-hour-long movies, TV shows. Like
there's just been a great change in technology.
Exactly.
In the 1920s, there were some big changes because we went from candles and lamps to light bulbs, and then the telephone was also made. In the 1920s, it wasn't as like famous or anything, but it was coming into like people were starting to get more and more.
Like a whole new world, right?
Yeah, and then there were planes. Charles Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic Ocean, and he became like a huge hero. And there also went from horses to cars. The car industry was just huge then. During World War I, when the demand was high, they bought lots of machines,
Technology, tractors.
And then during the Depression,
Yeah. Well, as she mentioned earlier, the radio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And during the 1930s, when FDR was elected, he would have these fireside chats where you would just sit in front of the fireplace and kind of just listen to the radio.
It's a great political move on his part.
Yeah, he kind of just encouraged us to keep going, even though we were kind of in like this huge depression. Yeah, kind of a good message.
So, how did all these like new devices that everyone's coming up with in the 1920s just suddenly like disappear in the 1930s and everyone was just left with?
On October 24th, during 1929, the stock market crashed, and we kind of just fell into this huge depression. And all the technology that farmers bought and everything led to overproduction.
but the Depression wasn't because of the stock market.
Yeah. Well,
Like, it was everything.
Like it was just building up, and it was just kind of all contributed to what happened.
They used credit and also buying on margin. So basically, it was like a buy now, pay later sort of thing.
Oh. Yeah.
So it didn't really necessarily help.
So when everything was, when they didn't have the money to pay the banks back.
Yeah, that's kind of what contributed more to the Great Depression.
I heard about the Ku Klux Klan. Was that like a really big thing in any one of your decades?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
What was the whole deal with that?
Well, they were like an organization. They're pretty big, and I think but they basically thought that white with certain beliefs were like the perfect race, like just like Hitler thought that everyone should have brown hair.
German.
Yeah. So basically, they were against anyone without what they wanted.
So, what about this whole like new evolution theory that went against religion? Was that?
Yeah. So Darwin's theory of evolution. So this was a big thing, the John Scopes trial, also known as the monkey trial, where he taught the students the Darwin's theory of evolution. But apparently, it was illegal to teach like theories and stuff because of like the Christian beliefs and stuff, like certain beliefs and stuff. But
That was a big change.
yeah, he was. Yeah,
People were starting to question like religion. What was really the big difference in politics between like your two governments?
Mostly because the 1920s was such a hands-off government, and the 1930s, like we were all kind of blaming Herbert Hoover because we kind of just needed someone to blame for the Great Depression.
So how's FDR different as a Democrat?
Well, when he was voted into office, like many acts were performed to go back to normal and get the money circulation going again.
Yes. Speaking of those acts, what was that whole big deal with the illegal and then legal liquor sales?
Well, in the 1920s, liquor sales were illegal because of the 18th Amendment. And basically, but when they were making the 18th Amendment, they didn't know that they were adding, there were so many loopholes that people could still consume and own liquor by doing it legally. And so pretty much, yeah, it didn't really have much effect. It just didn't really help that much.
And when FDR was voted into office, he kind of legalized alcohol again to make the money circulation flow and get more money spending and earning to fix the Great Depression.
Yeah, like I think nowadays, instead of like liquor and this whole big thing about liquor, like nowadays I think the biggest law that has been passed so far that is amazing by Obama is the gay marriage. Like now it's legal to have gay marriage. You guys probably don't understand that, but it is a big thing now, and I think it was a great new thing in America. So, speaking of these acts, Evelyn, tell us about the women's right to vote.
Well, it was really great because the women before had just been, their purpose was to be good wives and be good to the husbands. And the husbands were pretty much the dominant people in society. But then when women gained the right to vote and also they got more job opportunities, they actually became part of the workforce and got more involved with the economy. Yeah.
So, back to entertainment. Besides just movies, TV shows, what were also like big parts of entertainment in your decades?
Well, dancing and singing was huge. Jazz was like
The thing.
the thing.
Yeah.
And then there were many new types of dances that they made up for, and there was also, Harlem was like a big hub for.
Harlem must have been amazing in like African Americans being just as great as whites. Like, who were some really amazing African Americans?
Well, there were some
writers, artists.
There were some very famous African American musicians, writers, etc. And some of them included Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, and Langston Hughes. Yeah. And they pretty much, like, even though it was becoming to be more segregated, they still showed that blacks were just as good as whites could be.
So what about 1930s? What happened to these people?
Yeah, in the 1930s, since the Great Depression was going on, like such as Duke Ellington and Bessie Smith, they were still going around, but not as much, since people weren't able to kind of afford these tickets to get to these places. Yeah.
I think nowadays, like I've said before, entertainment entirely changed to electronic, and our music is totally different than your past music. Like now people use a lot of electronic sounds instead of just regular like sounds like instruments. Yeah. For news, like what were some really important news events that were happening in your time?
Well, we kind of had this thing called the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
It was kind of really big because it would like make a lot of people in an area migrate. And Okies, the Dust Bowl was kind of a really big thing, and it was like this huge dust cloud that would just come rolling over your
How
houses.
is this caused?
Yeah, because since 1920s was like getting all these new technologies.
Yeah, overproduction, farmers.
Yeah. They would, the new technologies such as tractors, the machines would kind of dig deep into the ground, and it would ruin plant root systems, and that would loosen up the soil, which the wind just kicked up all the soil, which caused this humongous dust cloud.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And then in the 1920s, some big news events were the South Pole expedition, where they went to the South Pole for like one of the first times, I'm pretty sure. And they found lots of new discoveries. And then airplanes, Charles, as I already mentioned, Charles Lindbergh, he was like a huge hero because he flew across the Atlantic to Paris. Yeah. And then there was, baseball was huge.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was like a really big sport at the time. And Babe Ruth was a very famous baseball player.
Yeah. So that's great. I guess that can show just like 1920s and like the events on the news were all kind of happy and great, while in the 1930s everyone was concerned with the big festival. Well, nowadays it's kind of mixed. Like we did have that whole Ebola crisis, which is this it's a epidemic where like it started in an area in Africa where people would just get severely sick and died. And it spread really quickly, which is what really scared everyone. But we also had a lot of important discoveries, like the European Space Agency landed on a comet. Can you believe that? Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I never even thought somebody would go to space.
But yeah, that's just one of really amazing things. So like, and with our presidents, we've just had the first black president. So like Harlem was definitely a big success for black African American people. So yeah, this is also a big thing. So, and we've just opened up our relations with Cuba again after 50 years of an embargo. So our economy is doing pretty well too. Well, a really fun topic to talk about are some slang terms to like really differentiate between our decades. So our decade, we say the word dude a lot more, and we use the word like a lot too, but not in the way you guys probably use it, but like in the way I just did, when you just say it before anything as like a place to take when you have nothing to say. Just take that place. So what about you guys?
Well, in the 1920s we had flappers and vamps. They're pretty much like the woman who would like party, smoke, drink. Yeah, they always wore short skirts and stuff. And they were called flappers. So.
So, with the heroes, Malala now is probably the biggest hero of our time. She's the youngest Nobel Prize winner because she fought for women's education. She even got shot in the head once. Who are some important heroes of your time?
The big boxing match between America and Germany, and Joe Davis. The first time he lost. The second time when they had a rematch, he won, and that pretty much made everyone so confident because they were all against Hitler and his like Aryan beliefs. But yeah.
So what about, was Joe African American?
Yeah. So that also broke barriers, like, because it showed that African Americans could also, as I said before,
like based on the radio, just like on the radio, like people could like, everyone could listen to the boxing match. Nice. So what about in the 30s?
Well, in the 30s, everything was kind of just going down since the Depression was kind of hitting us real bad. What we would consider as a hero during that time would be Roosevelt, because he kind of just was kind of helping us to get out.
Again, with the breaking barriers like you have already mentioned. So I guess for 1920s, I'm guessing Joe was the biggest.
Yeah. And then there were also airplanes.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone was like cheering because they all wanted to go on an airplane the first time and see the world from the air. And then also women gained the right to vote and got more job opportunities. That was a huge breaking barrier.
I think we broke the space barrier by landing on a comet and by the NASA's Mars rover. Also, Obama promoted many like immigration policies, so now we have a more diverse America. Like you guys probably have like not as diverse now then as now. And Saudi Arabian women, they're breaking the barriers of traditional women, just like women in the United States back then. Now they're turning into, like you said, those like flappers and vamps, not really traditional and held back home housewives anymore. I think a really, really big part of 2016 is communication. Like, the world has just become a million, billion times more connected. Like, ever since the internet, by texting, you can type instant messages to someone else anywhere.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's like our new communication. Instead of, you don't have to call anymore, you can just send them.
Or even write letters like I know.
Exactly. So what about you guys? What are some new ways of communication?
So we had radio, letters. Radio was the hugest probably one. And then there was also the telephone. It was gradually getting bigger, but I think it was more in the 1930s.
Yeah. People would use their telephones to call up the operator, which would connect them to other people that they can just.
Ancient.
Yeah.
Well, what about city life? I'm guessing city life is probably really different back then than now.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, there was I forgot to mention, but Wall Street, that's also part of city life too, but it was also part of the economy, and it was like this, it was called Wall Street. It's like literally Wall Street, and it's pretty much where all the stock market people and brokers go and to see the stock market and stuff. Like, not literally see it in real life, but like there's computers with like how it's doing and stuff.
So that's like big.
Mm-hmm. And then for the nighttime, there was lots of nightlife, like specifically in New York, like such as nightclubs. The Cotton Club was a huge nightclub. It was basically where they just sung and danced a lot.
Nice.
Well, in the 1930s, since we were all kind of just blaming Hoover, and there would be people, since they wouldn't have enough money and they would just lose everything, they would be living in these houses that they could just make out of anything, like in cities everywhere, right out of the cities, and they would be called shanties. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. So that wraps up tonight's episode of Back to the Future.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and tune in for another episode next Monday. Good night. Bye.
Yes. In the 1920s, we had a couple different presidents, including Garfield, Coolidge, and Hoover.
So, how about 1930s?
Well, cool. That was nice to know.
What's pretty
Okay, just do city
There's
life
nothing
now.
that's
Do
breaking
city life
barriers.
Migrating to places such as California, eastern, northern areas.
This is over and spring break is here.
Yeah.
Right?
Guys,
tomorrow's
get
my
out.
last day of school.
We'll get through this.
Like, we'll get through this, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're dragging my hat with you. And you have 2 different socks, and like a big black dress that you look like you just went to a funeral for your sister. I'm like, you don't even have to.
Oh, you look so dead. At least move.
Our dead photographer is here. Move where?
We're starting over.
Are you serious? We're
Did
starting.
you not hear what I said?
I thought you meant
were
like starting over that scene.
No, because remember we had the music playing.
So that you know I'm kind of hungry. I need to put my hat back on.
Okay, think of the reward as, please think of the reward as eating.
Yeah.
All the Madelines you want.
No, it's okay. If we
I'm not
finish.
that mean.
Holy fiddle! Okay.
Get your
Good
pencil.
afternoon! Shush!
Alright, ready? Oh,
Good
it's low
afternoon,
battery.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1930s. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We can put that in the blooper. You're like, thank you, and then you're like, all right, then. Are you okay?
Yeah.
What was that? Oh my god, that was amazing. All right, this is our last and final time that we have to do this seriously. Oh my god! What happened?
Holy fiddlesticks!
How was that even?
Fish sticks.
Please, thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Oh, geez. So different. Everything is so new.
Like, I don't remember having, like, princesses and stuff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host.
I forgot your name.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Future. I'm your host, Emily Cook, and I'll be joined by our two special guests. I can't do this, guy.
Why? I forgot my paper.
Welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, you have to be happy.
What does it feel like to be in the future?